Hello, my name is Russell Myers. Welcome to Issues Unite. Well, I have been warning about this for a long time. If you watch my channel for any period of time, you know that on a number of occasions I have stated that because of my views, at some point I will be declared a terrorist. I am anti-war, anti-violence, but I am a capitalist. I am a socialist. I am against the capitalist corporatist rule of this country, of the world, of our lives, of our existence, of our health. I oppose all of this. Well, I've said the Biden administration will pick up arms against this. And, well, here it is. I've said on this channel that at some point I could just disappear. All anybody would know was that I'm no longer producing videos. That's all anyone's going to know. And I stopped responding on social media. Then, just all of a sudden, I'm gone. And nobody would know where I was at. Might be Guantanamo. Might be some, CIA black ops site. But we are, many of us are at risk of this at this point. Let me, if you have not heard about this, let me take you to the information that you need for this. All right, let's start with this. Biden warning of a crime wave diverts COVID funds to police and snub to progressives. I am leaning heavily on Newsweek right now. We are now providing more guidance on how state and local governments can use the $350 billion nationally. That's $350 billion taken out of the legislation, the American Rescue Plan that he signed into law on March 11th. All right. They can use the $350 billion nationally that the American Rescue Plan has available to reduce crime and address the root causes. If you want to address the root causes, you address poverty, you address housing, you address hunger. For examples, Biden said, cities experiencing an increase in gun violence were able to use American Rescue Plan dollars to hire police officers needed for community policing and to pay for their overtime. Yeah, how are you liking that part so far? Now we go to this. Has Joe Biden made anti-capitalism illegal? All right, domestic terrorism strategy explained. Let me scroll down to what I highlighted. Classified as part of this section are anarchist violent extremists who violently oppose all forms of capitalism, corporate globalization, and governing institutions which they perceive as harmful to society, according to the report. The strategy adds that the groups may be motivated to violence by single-issue ideologies related to abortion, animal rights, environmental, or involuntary celibate violent extremism, as well as other grievances or a combination of ideological influences. A post on Reddit on Saturday used quotes from the section describing those who oppose all forms of capitalism to argue that people who believe in that ideology would be classified as a domestic violent extremist if the report became law. The Reddit users also highlighted a definition of domestic terrorism included in a report by the Office of the Director of National Intelligence on March 1st, 2021, which also included residents who oppose all forms of capitalism. Using the two reports, several of the users claimed that the Biden administration would aim to criminalize opposition to capitalism by defining those who do as domestic violent extremists. What are you thinking so far? So here is what I'm thinking. A lot of people are thinking, but they're only going after violent people with specific ideologies, such as being against capitalism, against corporatism. Here's your problem with that. This is what I think. Define terrorism. The terrorism can be anything that the state defines as terrorism. Define violence as within the constraints of a capitalist society. I have clearly illustrated before, violence is up to interpretation. I consider it violent when 10 million Americans or more, 10 million families, are facing eviction in mere days. I find it a huge coincidence that he is diverting money to police just before the eviction crisis occurs. You're not finding this to be a coincidence, huh? It just happens that he's doing this at this exact time. How is that money not used? There are still people lining up for food banks. There are, as I said, 10 million Americans facing eviction. So how is this rescuing any Americans? The American Rescue Plan. No. This is not rescuing you. And so I find it violent when children go to bed hungry. I find it violent when racist monuments are allowed to remain on public property for people of color to have to pass by on a daily basis. I find it violent when people are dying because they cannot afford medical care. And you'll notice he hasn't done anything, not one thing with medical care. He has not tried at all. What happened to that public option, huh? No, Americans are still dying from COVID, and because they couldn't access care for other chronic conditions during the past year or more, or because they just cannot afford their medications, they cannot afford to go to the doctor. This I find to be violent. Now, how do you think a capitalist is going to define violence? If you range a protest which limits access to a business, a bank, what have you, if you protest against a pipeline, right now, if you are blocking with this, if you block the construction of a pipeline, you will be declared a terrorist. if a person fights against being thrown out of their home and they look at their social media or what have you, or they even say anything to label them as socialist leaning, now they are a terrorist. They are a domestic violent extremist. It is truly only a matter of time before they come for anyone that identifies as a socialist. I have friends on social media that post things that some of them do advocate for the violent overthrow of the government, which I do not. However, I also give extreme credence to the quote by JFK: "Those who make peaceful revolution impossible make violent revolution inevitable." Excuse me, I'm tired. So, yeah, we are seeing a rise in violent crime. Why are we seeing a rise in violent crime? What has been the change? People are hungry. People are no longer willing to sacrifice themselves to some corporate entity for starvation wages, to be taken advantage of, to be, in a sense, raped on a daily basis. And that's what capitalism is. It is rape. It destroys your dignity. It destroys your self-esteem. Unless you are a successful capitalist. If you're not a successful capitalist, you don't have the right to your dignity, to your self-esteem, to your life, to health care, to food, to housing. This is violence. When are we, as a society, going to start defining this as violence? So yeah, all of this is just a big coincidence that that all these things just happen to fall in line right before the eviction crisis. As 25 states are ending the supplemental unemployment. And there's no correlation between the ending the unemployment and a rise in crime. There couldn't be any correlation with that, could there? And this is all getting worse, as the dollar is devalued. Yeah, keep on looking at it. Inflation is the devaluation of the currency. If your groceries go up by 10%, well, that means the value of your dollar has gone down by 10%. If housing goes up 25%, your paycheck, your income, the value of the dollar in your pocket has decreased by another 25%. If you put them together, just for those two things, the value of the currency has declined by 35%. And yet the Federal Reserve is pumping over $800 billion per day into the repo market. Now, these are classified as short-term loans, sometimes overnight, but when you have an automated computer system that just renews that loan. You can take an overnight loan and keep on renewing it, especially when it's at 0% interest. It's 0% interest. You can take a $500 billion loan and just keep renewing the terms of the loan, renewing the terms of the loan. And then they turn around and they say, all the major banks in the country passed their stress test. How are these banks passing a stress test when they're in debt by $800 billion? And this money, this amount of money, has been growing and growing. I first mentioned it when it was $100 billion a day. Now it's $800 billion. In 1 or 2 weeks, it's going to be over $1 trillion a day. In a sense, this is money that is just floating around. It doesn't exist. But it still affects the value of your dollar and devalues the currency. This is violence. When they are stealing, they are robbing you. When you're paying 35% more than you were a year and a half ago, they've stolen 35% of your income. But your income has not increased by 35%, has it? So yeah, okay, I guess I'm a terrorist now. It's not a surprise. I've been saying it was coming. And here it is. Trust me, this is going to be turned into legislation. You're increasing the policing. You militarize the capital of the United States. You took money away from people that was meant to freaking help them. And you put it into more police, even as there's this giant drive to divert funds from police into social service efforts. That is violence. That is violence. That is violence being visited upon you and me. This is not what we want. Are you a terrorist along with me? I hope you are. So, when there are enough of us. Oh, and by the way, let me complete that sentence. When there are enough of us, there's no way that they can come after all of us. But the other thing I was going to mention is that there's this chronic police shortage and prison guard shortage. And I have watched as, prison systems and jail systems struggle to try and hire more officers, and they can't do it. They can't hire people. Even people that come in wind up leaving very quickly. So that tells us that there are very few Americans that would be interested in locking up their neighbors for being against capitalism. It's not what the younger generation that they're trying to recruit believes in. All right. I'm making this too long. Please share this video. Talk about these subjects. Talk about these subjects far and wide. And just say it. Say I'm a terrorist. Say it after me. I am a terrorist. Because I believe in peace. Because I believe in human rights. That is what makes me a terrorist. All right. So, Share this video. Talk about these subjects if you can. Please donate $1 a month to help expand the channel. I'll catch you in the next one.